Thomas Jefferson is the author of a line from the Declaration of Independence. It says, "Let facts be submitted to a candid world."
There's a very important question you might want to ask yourself. How important is it really to know the truth about anything, especially in America? How really important is it to know the truth, the factual truth about anything?
My name is Ann Wright, and I'm a 29-year U.S. Army veteran. I retired as a colonel. I was also 16 years in the U.S. Diplomatic Corps and served in places like Nicaragua, Grenada, Somalia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, Micronesia. I helped to reopen the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan in December of 2001 and stayed 5 months in Afghanistan. And then I was in Mongolia when I made the decision to resign from the U.S. government in opposition to the war in Iraq. For the United States to be invading an oil-rich Arab Muslim country that had not attacked the United States and without the UN Security Council authorization, to me it was a very dangerous thing for America to be doing, and it really was a violation of international law, the act of aggression and invading a country that had not done anything to you. And that's really a war crime, and I did not want to participate, being in the federal government, with an administration like this. None of the 9/11 hijackers were Iraqi. They were all Saudi Arabians. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq at all.
My name is Camilo Mejia, and I am an Iraq War veteran and Iraq War resister. I was in the military from '95 and I was about to get out of the Army in 2003 when I was stop loss, which means that I was involuntarily extended by the military and sent to Iraq. So I served in Iraq from late April of 2003 until the beginning of October of that same year. And this was a war that I had opposed from the very beginning politically. But my experience on the ground in Iraq included the abuse of prisoners, and it included the killing of civilians and violations of the rules of war and actions carried out with complete disregard for the lives of soldiers and Iraqi civilians. And when I was given 2 weeks of leave to return home and I came back to the United States in October of 2003, I basically had for the first time the ability to come to terms with my participation in Iraq, in the war, which, as I said, is a war that I opposed politically. I was not able to continue justifying to myself participating in that war because of my political opposition to it, but particularly, most importantly, because of the things that we had done, because we had abused the Iraqi people, because we had killed civilians, because we were not out there acting in the best interest of Iraqis. We were fighting out there to protect our own backs, we were fighting out there without a purpose, and we were committing all kinds of war crimes. And so I decided not to go back to Iraq. And 5 months later, I gathered the moral strength to come forward, and I spoke out against the war, and I was the first soldier to have served in Iraq to refuse to go back to the war publicly based on his conscience. So this posed a political question to the military as to what to do with dissent within the ranks, what to do about servicemen coming back and speaking against the war publicly, and so they acted politically as well, and they denied our arguments in a court-martial. They denied our witnesses to participate, and I was convicted of desertion in May of 2004 and sentenced to a year in a military jail and to demotion from the rank of staff sergeant to private, and a bad conduct discharge. So I went to jail in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and served 9 months, and then got out and became an anti-war activist with a group called Iraq Veterans Against the War. And people can find out about it at ivaw.org. We're an organization made up of people who have served in the U.S. military since 9/11, and we demand the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all occupying forces from Iraq. We advocate for proper care for servicemen and women and veterans, and we want the U.S. government to pay reparations to the Iraqi people so that they can rebuild their country on their own terms.
My name is Jimmy Massey. I served 12 years in the United States Marine Corps. During that time, my primary occupation was infantry. I spent 3 years as an infantry instructor at the Marine Corps Boot Camp, Parris Island, South Carolina. Also 3 years as a Marine recruiter. The tactics that I use to enlist young men and women into the Marines is basically simple. It's the same type of tactics that you would use to strong arm or shake down anybody. You lie, do what you have to do in order for you to buy mama a new pair of shoes. Shortly after my tour of recruiting, I was sent to Iraq for a 6-month tour of combat. During that time of my six-month tour of combat, I witnessed numerous violations of the Geneva Conventions as well as international law, which propelled me to start asking questions about what our true intentions were in Iraq. When I started asking the hard questions to my leaders in combat, I was met with a lot of resistance and quickly labeled as a rogue and asked to leave Iraq because I was in a senior leadership position. When I returned back home, I was going to be prosecuted as a conscientious objector, and I hired an attorney to win my freedom because I was not a conscientious objector. I was objecting to the violations of the Geneva Conventions, which every soldier, every Marine has a right to ask if he or she feels that these rules of law are being broken. So in a nutshell, I spent 12 years as a gangster, as a thug for capitalism, fighting for imperialism at the barrel of a gun, and I'm 100% disabled through the VA, and I think that if I can summarize everything, remorse for the situations that I was placed in, and especially the killings of innocent civilians while I was in Iraq. I think undermining the troops is not exposing the truth. And I personally haven't felt that I've undermined the troops. My quest is something that is a God-given right. As a professional soldier, as a professional Marine, you have a right to not obey illegal orders. So by me standing up and using my right as a professional Marine and questioning my leaders that were in command, this is something that I felt is probably the highest patriotism that any person can do for their country.
We took an oath to defend this country, and that doesn't stop when we check in our rifles into the armory. We keep our country safe by telling people the truth. And doing that is just as scary as any ambush or mortar attack.